Welcome to Trump Breaking News Network, your daily source for up-to-date news on the political scene of Donald Trump, his presidency, American politics and conspiracies. Please subscribe to receive notice of our daily updates. Also share with your friends and your social media. We encourage you to like our videos and give your comments.
This is TBNN.
Deep State Criminality Warrants Rico Act Prosecution and Punishment. Russia-Trump collusion hoax. The ongoing Democratic Party crime spree exposes deep state as an international crime syndicate. What you are seeing is unparalleled criminal abuse of prosecutorial and investigative powers by the DOJ and FBI, respectively. Countless deep state co-conspirators are actually carrying out a soft coup which could easily turn into a violent coup d'état should their malicious prosecutions fail. Independent political analyst. If nothing else, the Democratic Party has shown the whole world that they are totally lawless and corrupt to the core. In so doing, the Democratic leadership has repeatedly demonstrated their extreme loyalty to deep state, not to the Republic. The Obama administration and Clinton Foundation, Comey's FBI and Lynch's DOJ, Brennan's CIA and Johnson's DHS, Podesta's 2016 campaign and Wasserman Schultz's DNC, all of them have shamelessly displayed a level of sheer criminality and flagrant corruption never witnessed before by the American people. Quite remarkably, the coup plotters continue with the conduct of their crime wave, in broad daylight, as though nobody is watching. Missed point. The inconceivably reckless Feesgate scandal is exactly the type of deformed political progeny that such a dangerous marriage of Obama arrogance and Clinton ignorance was destined to produce. And, yet, it is this grave miscarriage of incestuous justice for which every U.S. citizen ought to be eternally grateful. Because of Feesgate, the Democratic Party is finally over, deep state and a free-fall collapse. What really happened? Everyone ought to realize by now that a large group of high-level government officials and political appointees throughout the Obama administration and Clinton campaign got together to commit treason with the ultimate purpose of fomenting open rebellion. Their initial goal was to somehow overturn the 2016 Electoral College vote. When that failed dismally, the white-collar rebels sought to overthrow the President of the United States of America once Donald Trump took office. In order to carry out these seditious schemes, the perps brazenly contrived a baseless accusation about Trump's collusion with Russia to win the presidential election. This highly organized and criminal plot translates to a number of exceedingly serious violations of the nation's laws. For example, the assorted crimes that constitute treason, which have thus far been committed against the POTUS and the American Republic, breach the U.S. Constitution as they do various federal statutes. What these career political criminals really did, in order to escape the responsibility of their own criminal actions during 8 years of Obama lawlessness, was to accuse Trump of felony crimes that they themselves are guilty of. Isn't this what criminally insane psychopaths are notorious for doing? That so many of them hooped up around such an absurd scheme to falsely frame a POTUS is a testament to their collective and advanced psychiatric illness. Just take a look at one of the ringleaders of this camarilla of deranged deep staters, California Representative Adam Schiff. Now what? This treacherous conspiracy, which transparently concocted a fictitious narrative about Trump's collusion with the Russians, amounts to nothing short of sedition. Because so many co-conspirators willfully committed treason with the explicit intention to overthrow an elected, and then sitting, POTUS. It's necessary to prosecute each participant to the fullest extent of the law. Toward that end, every traitor who participated in this massive criminal hoax ought to be expeditiously indicted and arrested to face a military trial. The dire necessity for this dramatic response is to send a message to all accomplices, particularly those operating under the radar, that an insurrection will not be tolerated. That the seditious cabal continues to grow their criminal enterprise is quite shocking. Nonetheless, they persist in the face of daily exposure. Hence, the ongoing neglect to apprehend these traitors only encourages their serial law-breaking. Much more significantly, the Trump administration remains under the dire threat of a full-blown coup d'état. CIA and the Purple Revolution. The nation is at a crossroads. Surreptitious plots of treason and sedition, insurrection and rebellion are still being carried out each and every day. How in the world do these perps continue to act with such impunity even after Syndicate has been blown wide open? Virtually every major organ of the U.S. federal government is involved, to varying degrees of course. Most of the co-conspirators are operating in the shadows and unknown even to the de facto leaders of this Purple Revolution. That's because it's being coordinated by rogue elements within the CIA which always compartmentalize their stealth insurgencies, just as they implement these black ops on a strictly need-to-know basis. The mainstream media, MSM, is the primary communication platform by which the insurrectionists speak to each other without being found out. Communicating in code in this manner permits the collaborators to avoid internet-based correspondence and especially social media. It also prevents an incriminating digital record from being created which exists practically forever. In view of these stark realities, the Trump administration must apply the various legal justifications for shutting down the MSM. The establishment media has already broken several laws just as it has violated various FCC regulations. The contravention of various FCC rules and regulations alone serves as a lawful pretext to shut down the largest MSM platforms. For it is the blatantly subversive establishment media that is guilty of incessantly propagandizing the body politic against the POTUS. The CIA knows that it's only a matter of time before a critical mass of U.S. citizens will support a coup by any means necessary. This is precisely how the company, as the CIA is known in intelligence circles, has implemented color revolutions the world over since its formation in 1947. Special note, as Commander-in-Chief, President Trump has no choice but to administer the Uniform Code of Military Justice in order to decisively stop the Purple Revolution. Deep State has been waging an all-out war against his administration and has used the courts to paralyze his presidency. In an effort to topple the government, the Purple Revolutionists, for example Antifa, Black Lives Matter, La Raza, and CARE, have shown complete disregard for law enforcement, even resorting to murder. However, it is the white-collar Purple Revolutionists who must be securely imprisoned in a military detention center such as Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp. Only Gitmo provides the isolated accommodations and extra security needed to detain the likes of George Soros, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Robert Mueller, John Brennan, James Clapper, Adam Schiff, Chuck Schumer, John McCain, Nancy Pelosi, et al. Most importantly, only military tribunals can be relied upon to expeditiously dispense the justice necessary to terminate the Purple Revolution, once and for all. The critical point is that Trump has only one response to the ongoing soft coup being run by rogue elements within the U.S. intelligence community, a military response. Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO. From nearly any interpretation of the RICO Act, it's evident that Deep State not only operates as an international crime syndicate, it also fits the definition of racketeering. Both the Clinton Foundation and 2016 Clinton campaign functioned as two separate rackets under the overarching umbrella of Deep State. The criminal conduct of the Clinton Foundation racket was well documented by Peter Schweizer in his book Clinton Cash, The Untold Story of How and Why Foreign Governments and Businesses Helped Make Bill and Hillary Rich. The Clinton Foundation was never indicted for so much deep state criminality because it was set up as a CIA front company even though it's an NGO. The Clinton Foundation, a typical CIA-directed NGO that is completely above the law. How could the CIA ever permit its own institutionalized crime syndicate to be prosecuted? Likewise, the 2016 Clinton campaign is a perfect example of a quadrennial racket that first stole the primary from candidate Bernie Sanders, and then ripped off hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign contributions. Even some of Hillary's biggest donors wanted to know how the Clinton campaign spent upwards of $1.5 billion. Key point: politicos of every stripe have known for years that presidential campaigns are nothing but massive racketeering frauds perpetrated against a highly naive electorate. The campaign donors are fleeced every 4 years by an amount of money that distinguishes these as the most profitable recurrent rackets in the USA. Given that these political rackets only operate for a relatively short period of time, their true ROI exceeds every other scam in sight. Clearly, Deep State is heavily involved in racketeering in ways far beyond these two examples of Clinton crime family rackets. The following list of common racketeering activities, too, offers just a glimpse into some of the criminal enterprises and illicit schemes that Deep State routinely engages in. A protection racket is a form of extortion whereby racketeers offer to protect property from damage in exchange for a fee, while also being responsible, in part or in whole, for the property damage. A fencing racket is where stolen goods are, indirectly, sold back to their original owner. A numbers racket is any unauthorized lottery or illegal gambling operation. Money laundering and other creative accounting practices that are misused in ways to disguise sources of illegal funds. Kidnapping. Murder for hire. Murder. Bribery, bribing police, politicians, and judges and other people if done to benefit crime groups. Burglary and home invasions. Mostly extreme cases of academic dishonesty, such as in the Atlanta public schools cheating scandal. Loan sharking, when misused, the distribution of unregulated, under-the-table loans given on terms which are unlikely to ever be paid back. Manufacturing and distributing counterfeit products. Copyright infringement. Credit card fraud. Identity theft. Check fraud, paper hanging. Check kiting. Computer crimes if committed for financial gain. Arson. Insurance fraud. Embezzlement. Drug trafficking. Extortion. Prostitution. Human trafficking. People smuggling. Tax evasion. Bookmaking. Arms trafficking. Truck hijacking, hijacking the load off the trucks. Car hijacking. Cigarette smuggling. Mail and wire fraud. Securities fraud, penny stock scams. Bank fraud if done to benefit crime groups. Mortgage fraud. Witness tampering. Bid rigging, often construction kickbacks to organized crime groups that rig the bid to benefit themselves. Assault to beat up victims of crime groups. Skimming, fraud. Skimming, casinos. Fraudulent waste management operations. Auto theft. Operating chop shops. Commercial sexual exploitation of children. Bank robbery and armor car heists. Jewelry and gem store heists. Labor unions, labor racketeering. Pornography if done to benefit crime groups. Match fixing. Strip clubs, some crime groups own strip clubs also. Because many of Deep State's black operations are black budgeted, there is probably not a single racket listed above that they do not run on a regular basis, worldwide. The CIA alone has been associated for decades with arms trafficking and gun running, drug trafficking and human trafficking, money laundering and counterfeiting. Conclusion. The Trump administration can let this perilous predicament fester for only so long. The time is close at hand to take decisive action against every agent of Deep State and the numerous traitors throughout the U.S. government. At the end of the day, the CIA will have to be terminated as President John F. Kennedy urgently proclaimed, and that was over 55 years ago. Likewise, the entire U.S. intelligence community must be eradicated of its rogue elements, and unlawful black operations and psyops must be shut down post-haste. The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency must be shut down. The mainstream media will eventually have to be taken over and run as a public service utility of sorts with truly independent and balanced oversight. Exactly what that looks like remains to be seen. Google, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, etc. will also have to be transformed into public social network utilities which are immune to being politically weaponized. The mainstream media must be shut down and/or taken. Most importantly, the U.S. Congress must be purged of all miscreants who have failed to honor their oath of office. Likewise, every Supreme Court jurist who fails to uphold the Constitution must be removed before they inflict more damage on the nation. Because the barbarians are inside the gate, the entire executive branch must be dissolved and reconstituted.
This has been the Trump Breaking News Network. Please subscribe and share to stay up to date on the latest news about our president. Be informed.